Hello and welcome to a new episode of Test Chamber. I'm your host this time around. My name is Ben Hansen. I'm joined by the great and the one and only Matt Miller.
Hey!
And we're looking at the new Josie and the Pussycats game. Is that what this is?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Josie and the Pussycats in space.
Great. No, this is Xenoblade Chronicles X. We've already done a test chamber. You did a great one with Joe Juba that kind of ran down the basics of the mechanics and diving through the menus and all that stuff.
Sure.
But we wanted to show off kind of the late game content since it takes a while to unlock some of the most interesting things about this game.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would also say that one of the things that we noticed as I played the game is that, like, I was really enthusiastic about this game in the early hours, and I stand by that. I think it's a lot of fun in those early hours. But with each passing day of playing, the grinding really got to me, and that's reflected in the review that I ended up giving to the game, which score-wise was a 7.25. And so we want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the coolest thing, which is these guys right here. Our Skells.
I'm in love with this. I'm a huge Xenogears fan, and so seeing like an open world idea of getting into a gear and being able to control it directly, it's so exciting.
I know, it's very cool. These are the Skells. These are transforming mechanized units.
Oh my God, Miller!
I know, right? This is definitely the coolest thing that shows up in the later game. You get to get one of these things. It dramatically expands your exploration options, your combat options, and eventually even lets you fly.
What? So you get one, and then you are upgrading it throughout time?
You get one as a gift when you get your Skell license. It's kind of a pain to get your Skell license.
Well, you have to have the Skell driver like ride around with you for a while, and you have to take the whole test.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like 2-second rule, all that nonsense.
The Skell license has like a multi-step mission that you've got to go on.
Okay.
To even get access to the Skell. And one of the steps involves you having to find a particular resource out in the world, and it gives you no clue as to where that is.
Hey, you like exploration? MFer, get out there.
For those people who may eventually get to this, little pro tip, the thing you want is near a lake in the northeastern part of the map.
Is it that lake right there?
No, the most northeastern continent on the map has a lake in its northeastern corner, and that's where you want to go.
Okay. What?
It's called Oblivia. I guess it's not. Let me scale that back. It's not the northeasternmost continent. It's the eastern continent and the northeastern corner of it.
Got it.
Called Oblivia.
Can you land your mech?
Absolutely.
Right on top of that? Okay, go to the right.
Yeah.
Okay, that weird little
I'm gonna do it.
vertical peninsula.
I'm gonna do it.
Please do. I want to
Okay.
see this. By the way, this is a Wii U game. This looks really cool, and also it was a real gaming moment there when you flew out of that city. 'Cause I thought
know,
for
right?
sure there's
It's
going to be a
gonna load.
loading screen.
There
has to
isn't.
be something.
I want to. I mean, I'm glad we're talking today because it gives me an opportunity to like temper some things about what I said in my review, which is that like, and by the way, I stand by everything I said in the review and by my score, but I think there's a lot of cool things in this game. I think if you just looked at the 7.25 I put on this game and you didn't read the text, you maybe would miss that point, which is that like I think there's a lot of things about like this is just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Look at that.
This looks great.
This is I think hands down is the prettiest game on Wii U. And like the fact that on top of that you have these amazing creature designs. I mean, look at that level 43 thing that's flying by down there.
Can we go kick that ass of the giant dinosaur below you, the level 92?
No, I'm not quite there yet.
Can you land your mech on top of him?
Well, I think I would potentially die.
Okay.
And then my skull would get blown up, and then that would defeat the purpose of what we're trying to do here.
But at the very least, can you slide down his neck like
Here,
the Flintstones intro?
Like, we can try to fight this guy.
Mid-air combat.
Oh yeah.
Everybody talk at once. The classic Xenoblade style.
Yeah. Yeah, you can have mid-air combat with your Skells. This is a binding thing where you sort of like hold them in place,
Okay.
which is kind of interesting.
And that's a classic go-to you're doing every battle?
You do it in a lot of battles.
Okay.
It depends on what equipment you have.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I'm letting my allies do the bind so I can kind of continue doing some damage.
So something that was the case in the first Xenoblade Chronicles, which is a weird sentence to say, is the skills and the arts really tapered off by the end.
Okay.
To the point where it was like 30 or 40 hours where I feel like the combat did not change at all. And just starting out this game, I've only played a couple hours so far, nowhere near getting a Skell or anything. But they are dishing out art so quickly.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to tell them, hey, slow down here, sprinkle some of this out. Like, I haven't had time to absorb the combat, and you keep throwing new arts at me here.
I think one of the things that happens is that you get all those arts, but you start pretty quickly zeroing in on the stuff that you like.
Mm-hmm.
And after that happens, and you max out your class, the dilemma that you're talking about occurs, where you're playing for many hours doing the same loop of activity or loop of sort of battle actions again and again.
Right.
I mean, I'm not right now, by the way, I'm not exactly paying attention to what I'm doing, and I haven't spec'd out my Skell for anything in particular because I'm talking to you, but like but yeah, I mean, you get into these patterns of how you fight stuff, and then it's just always the same.
Yeah.
And because there's so much grinding of killing monsters in this game, that gets kind of boring.
Right. Can we see another continent? Can you show us the world map or something?
Sure. On my Wii U pad, which you guys can't see if you're out there in watching this video world, I can tap on the screen and go directly to any place in the game world that I've unlocked fast travel to.
So any hex area that you've unlocked and
any
put that
place
beacon
that
in?
there's a fast travel point, and there's a lot of them on every continent.
Okay. Is it basically Mario worlds as the continents? We got the ice continent, the fire continent.
No, they're different, right?
Okay.
Like this one's different. This one's this sort of weird, serene, nocturnal area, with all these kind of ethereal, floating tree things. I
love it.
It's very pretty.
Yeah.
And again, I can go wherever I want.
How high can you go?
Really high. There is a ceiling. You'll see. It's probably not worth showing it off, but if I just keep doing this and I keep ascending,
Yeah.
I will eventually hit a little like invisible wall that won't let me go any higher. But there's a bunch of stuff that is up high that you have to go find, right? Like there's monster fights sometimes that are like way up in the sky, or also sometimes there's weird monster fights that are way out at sea.
Right.
So you actually have to go explore in the ocean a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And like, check this out. I mean, like, you go all the way up here, find this like weird volcano caldera thing.
I love it. Is this by the way, is this the Skell music? Is this just playing in your cockpit?
Yeah, so let's talk about music a little bit.
Please do.
The music in this game, the first time you hear it is a little cheesy. And the 10th time you hear it, it's kind of annoying. And the 100th time that you hear the same tune playing, you want to, like, never hear anything ever again. It's so repetitive, and it's so schlocky. Like, it's kind of like, it's not really J-pop in my mind. Like, I like, there's some J-pop I quite like,
Right.
It's sort of infectious enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm.
Here, you have J-pop that's trying to be American pop sometimes, or American hip-hop, or even American rap.
Right.
And it's weird.
It's a bummer. Do you want to fight something or?
Yeah, okay.
It's such a bummer too. Like, on one hand, I appreciate that, as Kevin Smith would say, this game has a take. It has an angle, and the angle is like having a soundtrack with lyrics and going for this full hip hop sound, or having lyricists over everything. But on the other hand, coming off the tails of Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii, which has an amazing soundtrack, it's like 3 amazing composers. One of them's like the Kingdom Hearts composer, obviously Mitsuda from like the Chrono series. Just an amazing, amazing soundtrack.
Yep.
And to just abandon all that, I guess, for the sake of, I don't know what you want to even call it.
It's not great.
It's not great.
A couple other things let's talk about, though. In addition to that music being not great, there's some weird things about the Skell once you get it. You'll see on the right side of the screen I have Skell Fuel.
Okay.
That is constantly running down when I do activities. And if I don't remember to go back and spend my main mining resource to power it up, then I run out. and I can't use my Skell anymore.
I mean, that seems somewhat reasonable, right? It'd be nice if it was unlimited, but that doesn't seem like a deal breaker.
It's not a deal breaker. One thing that is more frustrating, though, is that eventually you get to a point that you really want to challenge yourself and go into fights that are harder than you think you maybe can win.
Okay.
And that's okay because, like, if you die... By the way, I went to another continent just to kind of show it off for you guys here a little bit. Whole different planet. So, yeah, you go into these fights that are a little bit harder, and if you die, it's not a big deal because you're kind of just able to respawn and try again.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, what happens is if you're using your Skell blows up after you die, after it's destroyed in combat. And so you have to go back to your headquarters and get your replacement Skell.
Right.
And that's even if one of your allies loses their Skell. And so if you're out doing combat where you kind of need your Skells, that's kind of a pain. It means that instead of just going back to a checkpoint, when you die, you have to go all the way back and get a new one. On top of that, if you miss the button prompt when your Skell blows up, not your allies, because they do it automatically, but there's a little like timed button press of B when your Skell blows up, and if you don't hit it in time, you lose 1 stock of insurance in your Skell. And if you do that 3 times, that Skell is basically gone.
Okay.
You can pay an enormous fee to get that Skell back, but you only get it back for that one time, and if it gets blown up again, it's gone again.
Well, speaking of Skells getting blown up, can we see you try and fight that cool-looking fish thing? How badly will you get devastated going out there?
I'll get instantly destroyed.
That's a cool thing to have roaming in the world. The challenge that maybe someday you'll be able to kill this monster, this peaceful being.
I think one of the things that's interesting in the game is that element of like, even early on in the game, you're encountering things in the world that you really need to skirt around. You can't just safely run everywhere. And there's even story missions in the game where, like, it sends you, like, you need to go and infiltrate this fort. And if you go to that fort at the level that you're expected to be for that story mission, then you are you would get wasted in fighting the monsters that are there. You're meant to have to sneak through that area.
Right.
And that's kind of interesting. Like, that's different from a lot of JRPGs. But it doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, you're having to do a lot of grinding in order to get to each subsequent narrative section of the game. And that can be kind of a pain.
Is it just a classic example of unnecessary padding? I mean, if you trimmed out...
I think it is.
If you trimmed out, I mean, this is going to sound insane, but let's say 70% of the grind and kind of the padding in this game, is it an amazing JRPG?
It's a really good JRPG then.
Okay.
I think that my biggest problem with it is that sense that I'm always doing... There were like several hours of the game that I was like, this is really neat. I'm going through a cool story mission right now. And then there were lots of other times that I felt like this is not fun right now. I'm just having to grind through content, or I'm being forced to explore and survey a continent. Like, that's what I have to do in order to do the next story mission, is I need to have 30% of this particular continent surveyed. So I'm just going to just run around for a while and survey data points. Surveying data points is not a thrilling thing to ask your player to do for extended periods of time.
But clearly, the team behind this game wants players to live in this world. And by live in the world, it's like, hey, man, there's going to be boring moments where you're just going around exploring and whatnot.
I think there's going to be a lot of folks out there who find a lot to love in this game. But I think those people are very patient players who are very open to a grind that doesn't have a lot of inherent rewards to it, you know? Like, there's games that have grind that when you do that grind, you get consistent sort of rewards. And here, it's mostly like, I'm going to just do 2 or 3 hours of grinding so that I can do the next thing in this game.
Right.
So
I do like that I saw briefly the name of your Skells in the corner there, and I like that they're all based on mythology.
Well, okay.
That reminds me of Xenogears.
That was me.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I renamed them.
Oh, Miller. What were they originally named?
They have weird like X3725-25 Meftis. You know, like weird, stupid names.
Did you do it as a nod to Xenogears? Because the Heimdall is like the old gear and stuff like that?
I mean, come on, man. Like, Greek gods make for cool names.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I did. Oh, we're not going to fight all those guys. Holy crap. This is the last continent. I think the last continent that I haven't showed off. That's kind of all the big bad guy base area.
Okay. Of course they make it in a volcano.
Of course it is.
Can we see you just eat dirt?
You want me to die?
Right.
Okay.
Or can you just lower yourself into the lava?
But the lava won't hurt me. But I can't find a monster down here who will kill me, I'm pretty sure.
Do some swim in the lava?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. What a great planet. I want to go to Mira when I grow up, Miller.
It's beautiful here.
Is he just breathing out some more fire?
Oh, this guy will kill me. Let's go talk to this guy. Hey, buddy. How's it going?
What do they call them? Indigens? Is that the name for the creatures?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
And they're not necessarily hostile. They're like, I just encountered, what is it, like Titans? What are they called? There's some sort of like more hostile version of them. You know what I'm talking about?
Well,
Tyrants?
Yeah, there's like, this guy's probably a tyrant,
Okay.
right? Like,
You should be a police chief, Miller.
yeah, I mean, there are these monsters in the world that are especially powerful. Mm-hmm. You can see by the way that first I got knocked. My characters got knocked out of their Skells before their Skells.
Right.
Like here, I'll get blown up here in a second. So I saved my Skell.
Okay.
It dropped me down. Now I can keep on fighting on the ground.
Go tickle his toe.
Oh, but surprise, surprise, that did not work out.
Wow.
And it'll reload here, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to be at a nearby checkpoint, but all my Skells are gone. So my only option now, unless I want to continue doing what I was doing, is teleport back home.
And there's no point. Once you have a Skell, there's no reason to fight outside the Skell,
really,
right?
because you still level when you're in your Skell.
Oh, awesome.
I mean, I guess it costs you fuel, and so you're having to spend a good bit of your Moranium on refueling. But
you're 1,000 times more powerful in the Skell.
You're a lot more powerful. Maybe not 1,000 times. There's still reasons. There's still situations where you need to be on ground. So you still need to keep your ground gear up. Some of the boss fights later in the game you have to do on foot.
Right.
Not a lot though. A lot of it is Skell stuff.
It's strange that we've been talking about this JRPG for so long and we have not mentioned the story once. Does the story wrap up well? Is it
I don't want to spoil things too much. By the way, your insurance has replaced your lost Skells, what it just said there. So now I have my Skell back. Now I can go back outside. I don't know why they just didn't build this into what you're doing out in the world, because now that was dumb. That last like 3 minutes that we just spent having to go back and get the Skell is kind of dumb. Yeah. Instead of just being able to.
Well, it puts you in the world more. You gotta role play going back to New LA.
All right.
It's a role-playing game, Miller.
So the story, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, and so I'm not going to say anything about the specifics of how things end. I will tell you that it was not a satisfying conclusion for me.
Okay. Is there a good MacGuffin going throughout the game, or were you enticed to see the end of it at least? Without spoiling, you learned very early on that the big thing you're trying to do is find where all the other humans have crash landed on Earth. They're they're supposed to be in stasis, and we're gonna go find them on Mira. You mean
on Mira?
Okay.
Right. That's something you find out very early on in the game, and so that's the gist of things, right?
Mm-hmm. Can you go walk in that street on the right? Just walk down the street, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And so it's just finding more and more humans throughout it. There's not a lot of twists and turns along the way.
There are a few twists, and what I just said, that what is your initial aim turns out to be there's a little bit more nuance to what's going on there. But again, that would be a spoiler, so I don't want to say it. But like I said earlier, I'm gonna just go hang out in this guy's house.
This is just like my favorite scene from that Transformers movie.
Yeah, right. You get to that ending. This seems like an appropriate place to end our touch chamber, by the way. You get to that ending and things don't get wrapped up, and it's weird. It is weird. It almost feels like there's an implication that there's some other part of the story that's yet to be told, which is very odd.
And you're confident you didn't miss it, though?
Oh, I didn't miss anything. I played content after the end, like after the game ends.
Right.
And there's stuff that's just like the final cinematic is this weird, like, open, loose end thing that you don't know what's going on.
So Xenoblade Chronicles X2? Is that where we're looking for?
Maybe.
I hope not.
But this team has traditionally always kind of like, with each new game, they take things from their previous game, but go to a new world and to a new setting and all that kind of stuff. So,
and I hope they just scale it back a little bit.
Yeah.
Like it's tough to tell a team not to be ambitious. Like, I want to be ambitious in certain elements, but I mean, they must have some sort of player data on the percentage of people that are actually going to get through this entire thing.
I don't know. I mean, I would make the argument that it is more ambitious to make a game that is tight and engaging for every moment that you're playing it than it is to make a game that has a bunch of filler that forces players to do stuff that isn't fun.
Right.
I honestly think that. I'm not arguing for short versus long games. I'm just saying that, like, if you're going to make a really, really long game like this is, you need to find ways to make the whole time that you're playing compelling.
Right.
And that was not my experience.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that's about all I need to say about it. You should go check out the review if you're still trying to decide if you'd like to play this game. There's a lot of pretty things to look at, some cool creatures to fight, some fun upgrade mechanics to engage with, but you got to be in for the long haul.
Cool. All right. Well, that's it for our test chamber of Xenoblade Chronicles X, and most likely the last, but it's an interesting game, and I'm glad that I got your very enlightened perspective, Miller, so thank you for joining me on this video.
You got it.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Goodbye.